Okay, so welcome at another recording for StartupLeap. Today we're going to talk about how to set pricing. Edwin, before we start, actually, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, what you've done so far, and what you do today?
Yeah, I'm Edwin. I'm working as an entrepreneur for almost 25 years, I think, and I have a communication ICT company. I sold it, and now I'm helping startups most of the time. I'm working at Stucom, maybe a couple. From Utrecht Inc. And I'm an investor in Array at the moment. So it's also started your place.
Yeah. Okay. So what specifically do you do besides investing?
Yeah, most of the time I'm working for getting up front, looking to the organization and the processes, the people working there.
Yeah.
How we get it financially sustainable. And, it's the most important thing I do.
Yeah. Well, I can remember, you mentioned Array, one of the startups in the acceleration program. Pricing was an issue for them.
Yeah.
So maybe not to go too much in depth, of course, but pricing in general. What are the most common pitfalls?
Yeah, I think so. It's not an easy case to get the right price. Most startups give it up front, give it for free, and just working on their product.
Mm-hmm.
And,
is that a good way?
well, it can be a good way, but you have to think about it.
Okay.
And,
when is it a good way to offer it?
If there's a win in the end,
okay,
it works. You have to get something back for it, I think.
Yeah.
Just a pilot customer, or get some free publicity, or find out maybe an upsell in the after when it's finished. That would be good. Then it's good, but you have to find out what your strategy will be. I think that's good to think first and then give it away.
So what are the most important variables to look at when you decide, okay, so I'm going to either set it for €1 or I'm going to set it for €100? Or what kind of things do you look at?
First, it's good to know your strategy. Do you have enough finance to getting into the market and get a loss in a year, 2 years?
Yeah.
If you can afford it, it's good.
So lower pricing is an acquisition strategy?
Yeah, it could be,
All right.
to getting into the market.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's good to see what's worth, and see what will the customer pay, what is the competitors doing.
Yeah.
So we have to find out all, let's say, indicators, and what's the best price. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned competitors.
Yeah.
So how do you look at competitors? Do you think like, okay, so let's say they ask $50 per user per month. You know what? I'll do 45. How do you decide what to do with that information?
I think it's good to know what the pain is where your solution is about, and what's the value of your product, and then looking to your customers. Are you doing the same thing? Is it different? What's the difference? What's the pain you reduce with the customers you will have?
Mm-hmm.
Can you have an upsell possibility?
So a lot of different variables to look at.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I can imagine also at first you want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
So would you suggest just to try out something, or would you suggest working out the entire financial model?
No. I don't think it's good to do a trial and error.
Okay.
And think up front why you want to try this. Let's say, for example, the free model.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? Give it a try and measure it afterwards.
Yeah.
And then
see how many people convert to a paying option.
Yeah, and do an upsell or do the fine tuning or.
So startups shouldn't be afraid to just test.
Yeah, just test and doing it, because otherwise it's all only a paperless thing to do.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned a pilot very briefly, but there's always a lot of debate about should you do a pilot for free or not.
Yeah.
Because if you do a pilot for free, then might be easier for them to say yes.
Yeah.
However, if the customer pays for a pilot, then you know and you validated that you're actually solving a problem.
Yeah, it's true. I think it depends on how serious is the customer. And,
What are triggers that they are serious?
do they want to put hours in it?
Yeah.
If, are they having people available working with you together for a longer time maybe? Maybe the first part is for free and afterwards you have a roadmap and they're working on the second part.
Yeah.
Are they willing to pay for the second part?
Okay.
What are the criteria for a positive pilot?
Yeah.
I think that's good to have an agreement on.
So as long as you get some value out of it
Yeah.
in the long run, it might be an option to do a pilot for free.
Yeah, I think so, and well, have the hours available for the customer to working on with your pilot.
Yeah.
Because it's a time when you can fine tune your product.
Yeah.
That's the other part of the doing a pilot.
Yeah.
That only give away the product and not the value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when you have a pilot customer or when you have any users to validate if you're solving a problem, you know there are tons of different business models. You can have a one-time fee, a recurring fee, you know, tons of different variations.
Yeah.
How do you decide what the best business model is for you? Of course, besides testing what works.
Yeah. Maybe look to the customer side, the competitor side.
Yeah.
It would be in.
You're looking at what makes sense from the
Yeah,
competitors.
what are the customers are willing to pay, what model works, what works not. So yeah, I think trying is the best thing.
Yeah,
to do.
you think there's always a competitor, so you can always look at
Yeah, I
what's
think
the
so.
old way
Yeah.
of doing and what
Maybe
what
broad
people
or
pay
yeah,
for.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. I think.
Yeah. Are there any creative business models that you've seen going around that you think, hey, I never thought that would have worked, or this is something new?
You give me that question up front, though. But I didn't find out.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to find out with a customer. The customer will help you to get a creative model. That would be my advice. To discuss it openly and try to figure out what will fit, or maybe get some free publicity up front. Maybe get a customer from another customer, or
through referrals or that kind of things.
So that would be things you can customize.
Yeah.
The question of the customer. Yeah.
Okay. If there are startups here that are just completely struck at, okay, so there are so many things to consider.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the first two steps for them to just act? What would be the first two things to do?
I think, well, think about it and then try. Try would be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's always a way back. You always can get. It depends on your business case, but you can always set up an end date for the agreement you made up. So start, get back if it's not working.
In that case, if you have a customer that's paying, let's say, $1,000 per year, and you eventually find out that you should have charged $2,000 per year, you can always just say, hey, you've gotten €1,000 discount for the first year.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Or have a discussion with that customer that you didn't have a good price, and well, you see what it gets. Yeah. It's
All right.
just 1, 2, 3, 5 customers you're trying on, so it would be a great thing to explore.
But when you do a multi-year contract, do you also do that, or is that not necessary? Can you expect them to honor the contract even if they haven't prepaid it?
Yeah.
Because your contact person may change and things may change.
I think that shouldn't be a matter. The contract is with the company, so the changing of the people. Well, if you signed a contract, then it's let's say 4 years contract or something. Is that the case? Yeah. I think it's the best way to pay it every year. So not all in advance for 4 years.
Why is that?
Yeah,
Why
I
would
think-
you rather have a company pay once instead of multiple times?
I think it's too far away. You don't know what's happened. It's not good to get money of your account back to the customers who are paying you because you're changing the business or something. So I think the contract is the value thing. You have it, and it gives you the right to have the money up front for 1 year. I think that's a normal
The
thing.
same goes for, you see a lot of businesses who offer, let's say, a $12 per month account, or $10 per month if you pay
If you
annually.
wait for a year or something.
Yeah, because then you have cash in the bank, of course.
Yeah, that's good. A year is a normal time to explore, and
Well, 3 years is not. For
yeah, I
us.
think that's too long. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
How do you decide how big your pilot group should be in order to be represented with enough information?
Yeah, it's interesting. It depends on the product you're delivering. It's good to have the discussion with the customer for where you define the pilot with. It's good to have, let's say, success ratios, yeah? And therefore you have to validate the number of the customers. So if you do the pilot for a couple of months, it has to deliver something. You have to get on a result, I think. Yeah, so it's good to see what the result should be of the pilot, and then see how many customers you need, or how crowded it could be. Or, yeah.
So Edwin, what about the startups that are already a little bit further down the road? So for example, what to do with pricing when you start out in the UK, for example? You're in a different country,
Yeah.
you have a different currency.
Yeah.
What do you consider?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm working now at Stucum, and we're getting some customers in the UK. We have a lot of customers in Holland, and it's a different part. So there's a different value, different competitors.
Yeah.
And
How did you find out?
we find out by talking to the customers.
Yeah. So you do customer discovery all over again, just in a new country, new environment.
and find out and talk to them and see what the budgets are.
And if you didn't do that, you would have offered them
yeah,
lower
too low.
prices.
Yeah. We did, yeah. So that's always a good thing to do, to investigate the new markets, see what's happening there.
Yeah. So what about if you work with different size companies? So if your customers, let's say you work with SMEs, but you also work with larger companies, how do you decide on pricing versus, let's say, the size of the company that you work with?
Yeah. We do it. We have the difficulty at Stucum as well. So small schools are paying less.
Yeah.
But there is a limit on paying less. The value of the product should be should be paid for, and otherwise we have to do too much effort for small customers.
Yeah.
So that will
But that's on the lower side, so on the smaller
Yeah.
side. What about the larger the company becomes, the customer becomes?
Yeah.
Do you adjust your pricing, or is it again just talking to them and finding out what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, and keeping up for our case, it's let's say more or less a payment per student. So
Yeah.
well, you can find out a model which works. So you can, in our way, we can sell a campus fee, campus fee for a school of 40,000 students, and a campus fee for 20,000 students, more or less. So you can make the prices on the student or on the campus, or we find out what
And
for a
you
feature.
use different business models.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
try it out. So that's what we do. We try it on A, B, and C, and then let's see what fits. Yeah.
Have you ever had someone say this is too expensive, or this is not the right time, or those kind of things? Have you adjusted your business model or your pricing based on responses?
Yeah, I think up front the prices are too low.
Okay.
So we lost, I think, some money in the front.
Yeah.
but it was good. We have a lot of customers extra. That's a good thing.
Mhm.
And now we can make an upsell model for
Yeah.
extra servers, extra features, extra. So that
Yeah.
that's a good.
You mentioned that you also work with universities. You know, they're the large organizations, of course. In those large organizations, you have multiple people who decide on if they're going to use a certain solution or not.
Yeah.
So does your pricing strategy vary based on who you talk to?
No, it depends on the name of the customer, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's not good to have it on the long term, well, quite as different as for every customer. So
Yeah.
it's not good for your organization and planning your finance. So
Mhm.
it should be going to a model where you have a price for a product, or
Yeah.
and it should be more, let's say, fixed.
Yeah.
As a startup, you have to get the challenge what a good price is. So
Yeah.
everybody will understand that the price when for your product when you're starting your company is not the same
No.
when you're working 5
No.
years or something.
So you mentioned you know you work with large organizations with smaller as well. Is there a difference between who decides what to pay between the actual user? So the person who pays for it. How do you convince that person of the value while that person is not the actual user of your solution?
Yeah, with a lot of let's say contact people in the organization, we don't talk about the price.
Yeah.
It's always good to talk about the price with the people who are, can make the price with you.
Yeah.
The contract. So
Yeah. Do
I
you
think that's
use the information that you get from the other people, or how
we
does
do.
that
Yeah,
compare?
yeah. And the other parameters are, let's say, how many students are there? What's the name in the business? Are they an
Yeah.
international company?
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of varieties about it. Yeah.
Will customers not
Sorry?
always start to think or rationalize from their thought, I want to pay as little as possible? If you go into discussion with
I
them?
don't think so. If you can well do it together most of the time, they will open it. You're starting your company. It's good to the first customers to be open and talk with them what the possibilities are. And you always can. You can try to get it. Let's say in a business case a higher price. But they don't have to pay the high price, and it's good for your next customer. So you can use their knowledge to building a business case in that case, and try what's possible, and see what the value is like and what they think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, we're now trying to get to success fees and things like that.
Well,
So,
yeah.
I don't know if we are a few steps further if we can.
But also,
Yeah.
of course, you know, with these kind of businesses, testing your pricing model when you work with large organizations might be a bit difficult because your acquisition time for acquisition is very long.
Yeah, and you're very glad with one customer.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with those kind of things?
Yeah, I think choose the customer who is willing to support you as a starting company, and help you to think what's the values like, and so. And as I said, they don't have to pay for it, but if they give you the knowledge and the information and be working as a reference or something, that's